and welcome to Live Interactive English.
Kiki, what? I got your text message. What's wrong? Like, why are you so angry?
What do you mean? I mean, I'm glad you got my message, but why do you think I'm angry?
Shouting at me in the message.
Shouting?
Yeah.
What?
Well, look, it's all in capitals. That means that you're shouting at me.
Oh, I didn't realize that I texted you in all uppercase. I'm sorry. I guess my keyboard must have been stuck in caps lock or something.
Oh, okay. Well, let me see. Oh, well, that's much different now that if I read it, it's not all in uppercase. That makes a big difference,
Oh, I mean, I guess I didn't realize that by typing all in uppercase, it would make you worry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, whenever I see someone typing in all uppercase and I get a message or I see someone post something, I read it as if they are shouting. And if it can be an angry message, it sounds like they're shouting angrily. So, this was pretty scary.
Well, I wasn't angry at you, and I guess now I know why it's important that we have to type properly when we are sending a message to someone, so our uppercase and lowercase matters.
Yeah, that's right. We have uppercase and lowercase for a reason.
But why do we have them both?
Well, I think we're going to find out today when we get into our article, Uppercase and Lowercase. Why have both?
Uppercase letters are big, like this. Lowercase letters are small. It's important to understand the difference when reading and writing in English, but why do we have both? English, like most European languages, is based on the Latin alphabet. Originally, Latin was written in big uppercase letters, known as majuscule, when inscribed in stone, but in smaller rounded letters, known as minuscule, when written on papyrus. In the 8th and 9th centuries, writers began to use both styles together for the first time. Majuscule letters were employed for titles and important words, while minuscule letters were used for everything else.
Welcome back. Let's get into today's article, Uppercase and Lowercase. Why have both?
So the article starts off, uppercase letters are big, like this. Lowercase letters are small. It's important to understand the difference when reading and writing in English. But why do we have both?
I guess I've never even thought about why we have both, to be honest. I just, always took them for granted. I didn't even think about how many other languages don't have both. English, like most European languages, is based on the Latin alphabet. So the alphabet is the letters that we use, and in English we use the letters from A to Z. This word alphabet comes from putting the words together for the first two letters of the alphabet, alpha and beta, which we now know in English as A and B. So for example, by the time she was 3 years old, Penny already knew the whole alphabet.
Good job, Penny. Well, originally, Latin was written in big uppercase letters, known as majuscule. When inscribed in stone, but in smaller rounded letters, known as minuscule, when written on papyrus. So the word inscribed, it basically means when something is carved into a certain type of material, and in particular, stone, because back in ancient times, before paper was invented, they had to carve their writings into stone, so this is inscribing them.
Right, to inscribe you mean by scraping or by removing some of the material to make a mark in the thing that you're making the mark or that you're inscribing on.
Right. So when they inscribed letters, they would usually use uppercase letters. And then when they had papyrus, which is a type of paper that is made from the papyrus leaf, and usually this is the paper that was used in ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, they would write in lowercase letters because you didn't need to carve the letters in anymore, so you can use smaller letters.
Okay. In the 8th and 9th centuries, writers began to use both styles together for the first time.
Oh, interesting. I never thought about that. I never thought that one type of writing would just be all lowercase and one type of writing would be all uppercase.
Yeah, and someone or some people had to sort of first start combining them for that to become the way we write today.
And I guess they also had to decide on the rules on when to use the different cases. So we have the word style, and it is a noun. And it's a particular procedure or a way something is done, and sometimes it has a distinct appearance. So we know that when we write or type on the computer, there are different styles of fonts. So the words look different, even though it's the same word, their appearance might look different. And also style can be done to describe our different ways of doing things. So you have your unique style of, let's say, doing your hair. And I have my style of doing my hair. So we have different styles. An example sentence would be, the author's unique style of writing made him very popular. So by reading his story, people are able to tell who the author is.
Okay, so he's got a specific style that you can read and you go, I know who wrote this because he writes in that unique style.
Right. Majuscule letters were employed for titles and important words, while minuscule letters were used for everything else.
Okay. So it says here they were employed. So you might have heard employ before as in someone employs a worker to work for their company, means to give them a job. But when we talk about employing things such as letters, you can't give a letter a job. But when you use a letter, you are using it to complete a job or a task. So we use employ to mean to use. So if something is employed for something, it is used for something. For example, Miss Connors employed every effort to make the class as fun as possible. So she used all of the efforts that she had to have a fun class. So we've learned a little bit about why we have uppercase and lowercase letters, but there's still a lot to fill in. So we'll find out more after the break.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。同学们有没有想过，为什么英文字母有分大小写呢？那今天的课程就要来看看英文字母大小写是怎么来的。先补充一下 ，uppercase 它可以当名词或形容词来表达大写或是大写的 ，lowercase 则可以当名词或形容词表达小写或小写的。那课文就提到说，英文和大多数欧洲语言一样，是根据拉丁文字母而来。那最初呢，拉丁文是刻在石头上，这时候是用大的大写字母来书写，称为大写体。但是在纸莎草纸上面书写的时候呢，则是用比较小的圆滑字母书写，称为小写体。好，那在8、9世纪的时候，作家们就首次开始同时用这两种样式。大写字母会用在标题和重要单词，小写字母则是用在其他所有内容。我们看一下单字 alphabet。Alphabet 它可以指一种语言的全部字母或者是字母表。那么 style 表示样式、风格。Kiki 老师这时候有提到 font 这个字 F-O-N-T， font 表示字体。再来 employ 它表示雇用，不过在文中它表示使用、采用，它也有利用的意思。好，那补充单字 inscribe 它表示刻。雕或是题写，这时候 Matt 老师他有提到这个雕刻刻字的时候，他有提到 scrape S-C-R-A-P-E scrape 表示刮，也有擦的意思。再看到 papyrus 它表示纸莎草纸。那这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。这边我们来学习 when 或是 while 加上 VING 或 PP 的用法。 When 或是 while 可以引导时间副词子句来表达在什么什么时。那么副词子句的主词跟主要子句的主词相同时，我们可以把这个副词子句的主词省略掉，然后把动词改分词，形成了分词构句。那主动的时候我们会用现在分词表达，被动的时候用过去分词。看两个例句哦。Some people listen to music while studying. 有些人在念书时听音乐。那这时候我们是由 while they study 简化成 while studying。再看个例句是 He often listens to podcasts when stuck in traffic. 他被困在车阵时常听播客节目。那这边我们是由 when he is stuck 简化成 when stuck。好，接着回到课文中。
For many centuries, there were no strict rules about capital letters. They were generally used to emphasize certain words. It wasn't until the late 18th century that people began to write guides on when capital letters should be used. We generally still follow the rules those guides laid out. Many other languages, like Chinese or Arabic, don't use uppercase or lowercase letters. But in English and other European languages, this system has grown over hundreds of years to help us read and write in a faster, clearer way.
Welcome back. Before the break, we were learning a little bit about why we used uppercase and lowercase letters. So we learned that originally, uppercase letters and lowercase letters were not used together at all. They were used for writing on different things. But in the 8th and 9th century, some writers started to combine them and use them to show important words in their writing.
So let's find out more about how to use uppercase and lowercase letters. For many centuries, there were no strict rules about capital letters. They were generally used to emphasize certain words. So just like you thought that I texted you in all uppercases, you thought I was emphasizing my whole sentence.
You made it all very important and
Right.
It scared me.
And that's what the word emphasize means. It is a verb to describe that you're giving something special importance or value, especially when you are speaking or writing. So, for example, my father always emphasized the importance of hard work. My father always reminded me that it was very important that we work hard. So he put a lot of stress on this matter or this subject.
Okay. So continuing on, it wasn't until the late 18th century that people began to write guides on when capital letters should be used. We generally still follow the rules those guides laid out. Okay, so we have lots of rules now about, in English writing when you should use a capital letter, and your teacher will tell you when you've used it wrong.
Right.
So it's interesting to know that they didn't have these rules until the 18th century. So it was a long time before people had these rules or these guides. So a guide is something that tells you or shows you the correct way that something should be done or something can be done. So in this case, it would likely be something that is written down like a book. We could say a guide. I need to check the guide. You check the maybe little book, or it could be a piece of paper that tells you when to use capital letters. Another example, I read a really good guide on what to eat in Paris. That would tell you the great places to go and where to find the best food in Paris.
Many other languages like Chinese or Arabic don't use uppercase or lowercase letters. But in English and other European languages, this system has grown over hundreds of years to help us read and write in a faster, clearer way. So we know that there was a guidebook to help us, to guide us on when to use upper and lower cases. But Matt, I remember you telling me something about the German language and how they use the rules.
Right, so even though many European countries also use the Latin alphabet, we have different rules about when to use uppercase and when to use lowercase. So for example, in German, every noun is started with a capital letter when writing. So you always need to capitalize the first letter of a noun in writing in German. Whereas in English, we only do that for proper nouns, so things like names of people, places, or the names of things.
So that's very interesting that although there are uppercases and lowercases for different European languages or languages that use the alphabet, there are still different rules and guides for each language. That's very cool.
All right, so Kiki, what do you think? Do you think having both uppercase and lowercase letters makes English simpler or more confusing? And why?
I think it makes English simpler because we're able to tell the difference between, let's say, a noun and a proper noun. So if I just said, I have a cow, and I can identify that as a noun itself, but not that the cow is named cow.
Okay.
So I still think that uppercases and lowercases can help language learners learn English faster and easier and clearer.
You know, so I think that's a good point that uppercase and lowercase letters help us to distinguish certain words. And I think from now on, when I read something, I'm going to look more closely at the uppercase and lowercase letters because now I know a little history about it, and you do too, and I'm glad we've learned it. So we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
大写字母一直没有严格的规则，那像这样的情形已经持续了很多世纪。它们通常用来强调某些单词，直到18世纪末，人们才开始撰写关于什么时候应该要使用大写字母的指南。那我们通常都还是会遵循这些指南解释的规则。好，课文提到，许多其他语言像中文或是阿拉伯语，并没有使用大写或小写字母，可是，在英文和其他欧洲语言当中，这个系统已经发展了好几百年了，可以帮助人们用更快、更清晰的方式来阅读跟写作。好，单字 emphasize 它就表示强调或是着重，是个动词。那么 guide 当名词，它可以表达准则、指导原则或是手册、旅行指南。再来看到文中它用到 capital， 它可以当名词或形容词来表达大写字母或是大写字母的。Matt 老师有提到它的动词在后面加上 ize capitalize 就可以表达用大写字母书写。好，这边一个重点，我们进入文法时间。这边我们来学习 It wasn't until that 的用法。那这样的句型结合了分列句和 not until 用来强调说直到什么什么才怎么样，或是才开始怎么样。那我们就快速的复习两个重点哦。第一个重点是分列句的句型 It is 或是 It was 加上原句要强调的部分，加 that 加句子其余的部分。第二个重点是 not until 表示直到才怎么样，后面可以接名词或子句。接着呢，我们就用 not until 名词或子句用来当做我们分列句要强调的部分，所以这个句型就会是 It is 或是 It was 加上 not until 名词或子句加上 that 再加句子其余的部分。举例来说 I didn't hear about their breakup until yesterday。 那这句是过去式，我们先把 not until yesterday 拿出来摆在 it was 和 that 之间。那么助动词 did 这时候就不需要咯，然后后方的动词 hear 要改成 heard， 所以句子会变成 It wasn't until yesterday that I heard about their breakup。 直到昨天我才听说他们分手的事。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
Uppercase letters are big, like this. Lowercase letters are small. It's important to understand the difference when reading and writing in English, but why do we have both? English, like most European languages, is based on the Latin alphabet. Originally, Latin was written in big uppercase letters, known as majuscule, when inscribed in stone, but in smaller rounded letters, known as minuscule, when written on papyrus. In the 8th and 9th centuries, writers began to use both styles together for the first time. Majuscule letters were employed for titles and important words, while minuscule letters were used for everything else. For many centuries, there were no strict rules about capital letters. They were generally used to emphasize certain words. It wasn't until the late 18th century that people began to write guides on when capital letters should be used. We generally still follow the rules those guides laid out. Many other languages, like Chinese or Arabic, don't use uppercase or lowercase letters. But in English and other European languages, this system has grown over hundreds of years to help us read and write in a faster, clearer way.
Oh, wow! Like the boots. They're really fashionable and they look really attractive on you.
Nah, they're not as amazing as you make them sound. They're just the work of a French designer and they only cost about $45,000. The designer is so famous that I had to wait for a whole month for them to arrive.
Wait, stop! Humble bragging. That is so annoying.
Today, we're going to introduce a word called humble brag.
So, humble brag is a word formed by combining the words humble and brag. Humble means not considering yourself or your ideas to be as important as other people's.
Humble sounds like a good word. Humble brag must be a good thing, right?
No. Brag means to speak too proudly about what you have done or what you own. Humble brag is when you complain or say you feel embarrassed about something, but you're actually showing off and trying to draw people's attention.
Are there any other ways to say that someone is bragging about themselves?
There's the phrase blow your own trumpet, which means proudly sharing your achievements with others. So for example, I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I won first prize in a singing competition.
Seriously? Congratulations! But please stop humble bragging.
Well, that's all for today.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.